What did your parents teach you that you had to unlearn? That I'm not done eating until the plate is clear. The wrong rules to Monopoly. When an ice cream van goes past with the music on, that means he has run out of ice cream. That all aspects of sexuality are disgusting and should make you feel guilty even thinking about it. That my opinions and desires are worthless. When someone annoys you, cut them out of your life. Permanently. That it's okay to want affection and that it's not normal to be surrounded by fighting all the time. That because someone is family, you should automatically love them. They consciously taught me that people, family aside, will never love you forever. It's only temporary. My parents are deaf, so I had to relearn how to pronounce a lot of phrases and words. If you play violent video games, you become a murderer. That people from India, Pakistan do not have tails. Astrology, numerology, palmistry and other assorted spiritual, paranormal bullshit. Mormonism. It's still taking me time to unlearn it, and I'm 35. That watching your food in the microwave can give you cancer. Understanding what is and isn't ionizing radiation changed that lesson. Cooking chicken. Until college, I thought that chicken was supposed to be dry. I hated it. My buddy cooked me chicken parmesan and it was the best chicken I ever had. They taught me to never disagree with anything. In my household there was no such thing as no or why. Korean fan death. For those who don't know about this, Korean people believe that if you sleep with a fan on with all windows and door closed you will die. Still can't convince my parents that this is a myth. My mom is obsessively clean. It took me a couple years into my marriage to stop cleaning to her standards. I am not a dirty person, but I don't have a fit about a little dust on the baseboards. She should see my carpet right now. I've been sewing. There is scraps and threads all over. She'd twitch. What food tastes like? Chicken is not supposed to be tough, dry and chewy. Steak is not usually chewy, flat and gray. There are more seasonings available than salt and pepper. Once I taught myself to cook, the world just opened up with new flavors and foods. It was the best. That the garbage disposal will not trigger a nuclear reaction and blow up half the world within 5 seconds of being turned on without cold water running. That was a tough one to unlearn. That you should never do anything for others because nobody will do anything for you. I understand because my mom came from a very rough household growing up, but it was frustrating whenever she found out I bought lunch for my friends or gave someone a ride. It would always be the nobody will look out for you, why do the same. My dad thought it was funny to teach my sister, brother and I the wrong names to things. Sister confuses plates and bowls, brother confuses forks and spoons, I get confused with beetroot and capsicum. I get it right most of the time now. My mother is the anti-vax, Coney 2012, chemtrails type person. I believed every lie she told me and of course, I told everyone at school this shit. It gained me reputation as the weird kid and nobody believed me for a long time. That just because someone is older than me doesn't mean they know more than me. Yes, it's true I don't have as much experience or knowledge about things in the world, but it is possible for me to know something that someone who is older than me doesn't know. My dad always used the I'm older, wiser, more experienced line if I said something, a fact or piece of information that he didn't agree with or think was true. It made me feel a little insecure about what I know and if what I know is right or not. That loud noises and rough housing cause the cake to not rise when baking in the oven. Come to find out 20 years later it was just a lie to get us to be quiet. Now that I think of it, they got quiet kids and cake. Scratch that, I'll remember this instead and use it in the future. To be a bystander, for lack of a better term. My parents are very against me standing up for others and even myself in some cases, and I had to learn that standing up for other people is the right thing to do. Also, how to pronounce cucumbers. Black people are nasty and have lice and are different from white people. Evolution is a lie. Scream about everything and never compromise because that's settling, and you should always put yourself first. Abortion is wrong. Animals were put on this earth for human use. That mental health is for girls. It's okay to feel negative emotions such as anger or sadness. I wish I could have found this out earlier. I still have to unlearn many abusive lessons they gave me, like their approach to modesty resulting in never celebrating any achievements. The world doesn't end if you aren't home at 2 a.m. Women don't have to marry or have children. It's normal to hug the people you care about. They acted like it was very inappropriate. How to money. They never dealt with credit cards, student loans, etc. What they taught me was superficial and some of their strategies put me deeper into debt. Took years, but dug out. My credit is great, and I'm actively saving every month. That I'm not a special snowflake. Being smart and talented stopped mattering around age 17, and I felt like a fraudulent freak up until I learned how to work and apply myself. Eat shitty. We never ate vegetables. Always starches and crap. So much processed bullshit. I'm 28 and finally have managed to retrain my palate to eat vegetables regularly. I do my best to eat plenty of veggies every day of all different types, and I'm very concerned with my health and fitness. Passing this on to my son is super important to me. Stranger danger. Most victims of abuse, murder, kidnapping, rape, and molestation etc. are preyed on by those closest to them. Teaching us to be afraid of anyone we don't know actually harms our social skills and ability to reach out for help when we need it, etc. It keeps us in a fearful shell of sorts. That men should be busy doing manly stuff and that taking care of, entertaining the kids is women's work. Freak that. I hang out and do stuff with my kids every chance I get. What's the point of having them if you don't want to spend time with them? That you don't have to marry everyone you date. My mom was married 7 times and taught us that you never left anyone. No matter if they were horrible to you, took all your money and treated your kids like shit. And that you could fix them if you married them. It took me a moving out and talking with other people that is not normal and people break up all the time. Luckily, I never married any of those guys. Respect your elders. I somewhat get the logic behind it, but age certainly isn't indicative of character and therefore age should not equals respect. Like congrats, you have lived longer than me. Old-fashioned Southern racism. When I was old enough to really think about it, I knew it was wrong. Couldn't say anything against it because I would have been ostracized, and heaven forbid if I had dated a black woman, I would have been disowned by my entire family. Well, my grandpa told me that soda evaporates quickly, as in half the can in 20 minutes, when I was around 6. Took me like 10 years to realize he's been drinking my soda when my back is turned. I always drank my soda fast when outside or in hot places because of it. To always assume the worst might happen. My parents are conservative in every way, shape, and form. Like no mom, just because I'm out having a good time with my friends and don't answer my phone doesn't mean that I'm dead. Now that 100% independent, I'm learning that sometimes risk equals reward, whereas my parents had taught my siblings and I that risk usually leads to demise. That you can always do better. Not that that's intrinsically bad, but when you don't learn to stop and appreciate what you've accomplished, you'll never be satisfied. All things political. My mother's side of the family is a constant cycle of choosing the opposite side of the political spectrum to spite one's parents, not for any actual political reasons. My mom never washed her hands after going to the bathroom. When you're a little girl, it's pretty common that you go to the bathroom with your mom, public restrooms, mostly. But I never saw her wash her hands and she never really encouraged me to. Sometime in grade school I realized, this is gross, and started teaching myself to wash my hands after the bathroom, after touching food, etc. No idea why she's like this, she's not particularly a dirty person. Maybe because she grew up with an outhouse. I don't know. I think it contributed to me being somewhat of a germaphobe these days. That it's okay to touch animals. I got caned for not washing after playing with dogs, so that led to fear around animals in general. I'm doing better, I'm comfortable with petting cats. I'm okay with dogs. If they're really energetic, hyper, or excitable it freaks me out, but if they're calm, I can actually work on getting over my fear of petting them. That white people are racist and do everything they can to prevent us blacks from succeeding. Mexicans have a shit ton of babies so they can take over the US. Asian people are weird and nasty. I was watching Scrubs with my mom one day and she told me that people aren't nearly as horny as they are in that show. Sometime during my freshman year of college, I realized how entirely untrue that was. My father unintentionally taught me his racist views against Indigenous Australians and Asians. As I got older and started interacting with them in the real world, I realized that not all Aboriginals are bad, and that Asians are pretty cool. Thinking you're better than everyone else, while at the same time hating yourself. Being a rude, horrible person, and a crappy friend. Thinking it was normal to discard people for petty failures. I always thought that steak had to be very well done because that was always how we ate it at home. And then one day my then girlfriend's dad made me a medium rare steak. It was love at first bite. My mother taught us that you should throw your candy and popcorn trash on the floor in a movie theater. It wasn't that she was lazy or didn't care about the ushers. She genuinely thought that it was socially accepted, even encouraged. I don't know where she learned that. I wasn't allowed to express anger. At all. I'm a poor communicator, so at times it's hard not to revert and just bottle it up, but no one wants to be the cashier, so I keep working on it. I once asked my dad what an overhead cam was after seeing an ad for a car, and he told me, you know the bump under your feet when you sit in the middle of the back seat? Well, that's the camshaft. It rotates and that's what drives the rear wheels. With an overhead cam that goes above your head so there's more legroom in the middle seat. My dad is a surgeon. My good Christian mother told me that only black people and poor women breastfed. This was very confusing. She said formula was good enough for her mother to give her, and so it was good enough to give my sister and me. Okay, no questions asked. So, when I grew up and started having friends with kids, I saw how beautiful that gift was. When I got pregnant the first time, she pulled that bullshit wisdom out again. So, I asked her if Mary gave formula to Jesus, and more importantly, where did Joseph find a corner store open on Christmas, and she shut the freak up. I breastfed all 3 of my kids like a champ and she never said a word. I do not have to say sorry for everything. I used to say, I'm sorry, for everything. Reached for the same cookie. Sorry. We had different opinions and you're frustrated. Sorry. Didn't grab the right bag of groceries out of the truck. Sorry. I said sorry for everything, even when cashiers didn't have nickels to give me back at change. I apologize for me causing them that inconvenience. Unlearning that is still a struggle at times. Quantity over quality. Though my family was economically stable, privileged even, my parents grew up in poverty. So, their way of buying was to buy cheap. Which definitely should be taken into consideration, but ultimately, if the quality is not there, you end up spending more to continuously replace the item. We could afford to buy things of better quality that would last longer, but that's just not how they grew up. It still hurts me to spill $60 on a nice pair of shoes that will last more than a year, but I have since learned that I would much rather spend this $60 one time, rather than getting 3 pairs of $20 crappy no-brand shoes that hurt my feet and fall apart every few months. When I was growing up, my parents had a list of things they thought I should do to become a man. They'd warn me that I would never get a wife if I was a picky eater, couldn't fix a car, or didn't know how to do manly things. I gave it my best effort to improve to their ideals, but in the end, I found that it didn't matter. While having those qualities were helpful in life, I found that they really didn't matter in a relationship. I was able to find a great girlfriend who accepted me for who I am. She even lets me keep my rubber duckies in the bed with us at night. My mother is convinced all clothes are too tight unless they are falling off you. I looked like a ragamuffin for years until my rich sister-in-law pulled me aside and went, "Sweetie, I'm going to take you shopping before you ever have to attend any job interviews looking like that." It took me about 5 years to unlearn that just because someone is family, it doesn't automatically mean they have your best interest at heart or even care about you at all. Both of my parents were the scapegoats for each of their families, and they're still stuck in it like they don't have a choice.